Thank you. Sorry.
You talks about human rights, but what about the population explosion, population control?
But,
This
sir,
is the major thing.
I'm afraid we will have to let the panelists speak and you will have to wait till she has finished.
This should not be forgotten, this item.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. So I wanted to frame the discussion because this panel basically is going to sort of just flag a few things, right, for what we'll be discussing over the next day and a half, I suppose. So I just wanted to start with this recognition that this is not sort of an internet bashing sort of a thing. No, it's because we do recognize that the internet has fundamentally changed so many things for us. There have been many rights that we've been able to exercise only because of this technological development of internet. There have been many rights that we've been able to exercise more freely and more effectively as a result of this technological development. But that said, that also means that there are many of our rights that are getting impacted as a result of this. And it is a question of not just critical thinking about these developments. In many cases, it's a question of using common sense. To look at how this technological development has impacted us and whether we are able to be free in the context of this technological development pervading all of our spaces, right? In that regard, I was asked to focus on rights, which is sort of a big task. No, it's not really possible to address rights within the and how this technological development of internet affects it and how it is impacted. But one thing I wanted to flag in relation to rights on the internet and the rights and digital spaces is that oftentimes I feel our focus is restricted to civil and political rights. And there are economic, social and cultural rights that are oftentimes left behind in our analysis and our focus of how they are affected. Now, one of those rights that I specifically wanted to flag is the right to livelihood and right to work, and how that has fundamentally changed with the advent of the internet and the use of internet. Now, one of the key issues when it comes to right to livelihood and right to work and the internet has been that many of us, and I'm an example, that I work completely online. Like, I don't go to an office, and it was a strange adaptation, but I completely love it. And that's made so many things possible for me because I can literally exist in 9 spaces at the same time, which was not possible. So there are a lot of changes that have happened to our work, right? But also then comes the question of what happens to the jurisprudence that's developed around labor laws that's come up as a result of hard struggles, the union movements that have come up as a result of hard struggles and lives that were lost. Now, what happens to all of that wisdom and how do we apply it to online spaces? Now, do I have, or do people who work in these online spaces, do they have labor rights or not? You know? And how that happens? I think those sort of questions also have a fundamental value within our system, and I'd like to see perhaps in the future a lot more focus on that and on that as well. Not to say that civil and political rights are all in place. No, clearly that's if the mere fact that we only now had to have right to privacy be recognized as a right shows that our civil and political rights are not all in place. And I also wanted to situate this discussion, and I'm glad Raj pointed this out, that we are talking about these digital spaces in a context where the internet can be taken away from us at a whim. Now, what is the point of talking about all of this if this technology can be taken away from me without any accountability, without any process of appeal for me? And DEF has been doing quite a lot of work looking at the impact of these network shutdowns and virtual curfews on people, though. And the impact goes beyond just economic impact. The social impact and the social trauma that network shutdowns cause on people, especially people in conflict-stricken places. Now, the worst thing for someone to do is to take away the only comfort I have during a conflict or a situation. No? My only comfort is to be able to tell my family I'm all right for now. And to take that and to take away the means through which I could do that. And that's really traumatic. And the state has repeatedly, and perhaps I should also correct myself, not the state, the government has repeatedly relied and placed more emphasis on doing its job and not necessarily looking at what the citizen needs, what an individual needs. So I think all of that comes back to the question of who matters. Does this technological advancement as a standalone is what should be given priority, or is it the individual who matters? I think my entire intervention, I'd just like to focus on that question. Who matters in this discussion of the internet? Is it the individual? What is it? You know? And one of the classic examples of this online and offline kind of discussion is also, if I had to pick one right and look at it, is the freedom of expression. How that has been impacted and the reaction that individuals have had to freedom of expression online. And more importantly, the reaction the state has had to freedom of expression online is baffling. We are talking about this at a time when, and I'm sure colleagues from Bangladesh will be able to point this out to you later, the number of lives that have been lost for what is being said online is really just, it's indecent, and it really mocks at our own how do I say, our whole ability to discuss rights in that sense. The number of bloggers who have lost lives in Bangladesh and in Pakistan for merely expressing their views, for taking a position. And this is something that we have to look at and not blame the internet for it, because that's the easiest thing that happens, no? Is to blame the internet. If the internet wasn't there, none of this would be happening. No, it's the individual who sits behind all of this that really needs to be looked at, no, in that sense. And to address all of this, my greater issue with all of this has been that the sudden legalization and legitimization of actions that the state is taking, because the way the state is looking at the internet as if it is a strange and different creature, and that everything else that we've learned and we've established in terms of the constitution, in terms of rule of law, suddenly does not apply to the internet. Is the way the state has been, or the government has been trying to regulate the internet as if it's a different creature and has nothing to do with us, is really baffling. And one of the examples is that crimes that were governed by the penal codes in offline spaces have suddenly now been changed in online spaces. Now, if an example would be defamation. Now, in Bangladesh, defamation offline has a different punishment and online has a different punishment. Now, what is the rationale for this? Why is it that the punishment, the number of years of imprisonment for an offline act is different from an online act? What is the logic and what rationale behind it? And similarly, for blasphemy in Pakistan. Now, why is it that a blasphemous act, or so-called blasphemous act, offline is less offensive compared to online? Now, all of these questions really need some sort of thinking, because the government in this rush of, I'm glad Usha also pointed that out, no, the law follows change. But this reactionary legalization we are having of newer restrictions, which is corroding our rights, is something that requires a lot of attention. Because what is happening is that we have completely moved away from a rights-based approach to this technological advancement of the internet. And what we really need a little bit more focus on is to go back to looking at this rights-based approach to the internet, because at the end of the day, it's the individual who carries along with them the right, no? That's probably what should matter, and that's the only thing that I'd like to close with is we need to bring the focus back to the individual, because the only way we're bringing the focus back to the individual is in terms of what I should be doing to protect myself, but actually the focus needs to come back to the fact that I already have these rights. What I'm saying is stop eroding them, stop interfering with them.
Okay, since what I've done